Indiana Jones and the Great Circle has captured the attention of critics and fans alike. Hailed as a thrilling return to the beloved adventurer's world with its mix of puzzle solving, exploration, and cinematic set pieces. Critics praise the game's nostalgic charm, impressive visuals, and engaging soundtrack, some even calling it a near-perfect love letter to any Indiana Jones fan. However, despite the glowing reviews, I'm here to tell you that this game is mid at best. While it may shine in presentation, its substance leaves much to be desired for those seeking a truly groundbreaking experience. Welcome to Midnight Launch. I'm JD, and today we're going to be taking a look at Indiana Jones and the Great Circle from the perspective of a consumer. Let's get started. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is an action-adventure game that puts players in the shoes of the iconic archaeologist, blending puzzle solving, exploration, and combat in a globe-trotting quest. Developed by Bethesda and MachineGames, the game features richly detailed environments inspired by 1930s pulp adventure stories and a narrative that ties closely to the spirit of the original films. Players navigate ancient temples, solve intricate puzzles, and uncover secrets while engaging in intense action sequences. With a focus on cinematic storytelling and a mix of nostalgic and modern gameplay mechanics, The Great Circle aims to capture the excitement of Indiana Jones's adventures in a fresh, interactive format. And now let's dive into the review. Gameplay. The gameplay of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle struggles with clunky mechanics and poorly optimized controls, which detract from the overall experience. I noticed a lot of issues, so let's break this down into categories: controls, glitches, and inconsistencies. The controls in this game were not user-friendly. The first glaring issue that I noticed was that I had to press Tab, E, and D to open a single door. Now, why would that be necessary?
Let me in! Let me in!
Also, the escape button does nothing. If you're looking at the map or journal and want to get back to gameplay, you can't escape to exit. That takes you to the overlay menu. You have to click J again to get back to playing the game. Now, these issues are somewhat minimal and don't affect the quality of the game that much, but it's an inconvenience and that affects the game's quality of life, and that's enough to warrant a decrease in score. Moving on to glitches, I noticed some issues with using Indiana Jones's whip to climb surfaces. I would be attempting to climb up, but then all of a sudden, the whip would start stretching and get longer as I climbed, leading to a net increase of 0 altitude on the climb. Now, this happened early on in the playthrough, and it might have been patched as there was an update, but I'm not entirely sure. There were still some more issues that arose where I tried to interact with objects and had to reload as the cutscene didn't activate, and that object was no longer interactable, so I was just running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And to add to the list of glitches is this funny screenshot that I took during a cutscene. Like, what is this? Thor Love and Thunder?
I no longer go by the name Astrid. I'm now known as Axel.
Ah, look at the top of his head!
There were also so many inconsistencies in this game with combat that just made it so unbearable. First of all, combat is limited because of the reliance on stamina to make attacks, so naturally, you just want to avoid combat entirely. But second, I switched from hardcore to easy mode because I would get punched from across the map during a boss fight and I would instantly die.
That's quite big.
Or, I would try to throw a spear when I was aiming perfectly at the enemy, but then the spear would just bounce off and I would instantly die. And I might add to that is the only reason I was instantly dying was because I was playing hardcore mode. And the only reason I was playing hardcore mode in the first place was because the enemy detection on easy mode is practically non-existent. I could run past dozens of Nazis and all they could muster up was
standing right in front of you.
So, to give myself any challenge for navigating stealthily, I had to up the difficulty, which is not something that I usually do. I'm the type of person who plays games for the story, and I don't tend to enjoy combat challenges in narrative-heavy games. But this game was such a cakewalk in easy mode that I had to do something to make it feel like I was actually putting some effort into my gameplay. Now, that was a lot of info to throw at you. I really tried to make sure that the issues I was bringing up were objective, but the problems made me so irritated that I had to showcase just how much I disliked the gameplay because of it. Outside of these issues, the gameplay was actually kinda decent, but the fact that the controls felt so clunky and that there were so many issues with glitches and inconsistencies in combat means that we're just gonna have to give Indiana Jones and the Great Circle a 4 out of 10 for gameplay. Whew, that was a mouthful. Replayability. The replayability of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle leaves much to be desired. The game's linear story lacks branching paths or choices that impact the narrative, making a second run feel identical to the first. While players can revisit locations to complete unfinished fieldwork or explore areas they might have missed, this content feels more like a checklist than a compelling reason to return. Without significant changes to the storyline or new gameplay elements on subsequent playthroughs, the game offers little incentive for replay beyond the satisfaction of completionists. Because of this, we're going to give Indiana Jones and the Great Circle a 4 out of 10 for replayability. Story. The story of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is exceptional, as it captures the essence of the iconic archaeologist's adventures, delivering a narrative that feels like a classic Indiana Jones film come to life. With plenty of callbacks to memorable scenes from the movies, the game adds its own creative twists to make these moments fresh and fitting for the interactive medium. The plot is engaging and packed with high-stakes action, humor, and intrigue that fans can expect from the franchise. However, the linear nature of the narrative limits player agency, making the experience feel more like watching an extended cut of an Indiana Jones movie with occasional gameplay intermissions. While the story is undoubtedly a highlight, its lack of flexibility may leave some players wishing for more control over the unfolding adventure. Keeping all of this in mind though, we're still going to give Indiana Jones and the Great Circle a 9 out of 10 for its story. Fun with friends. Unfortunately, unlike some other Indiana Jones games, the Great Circle does not include multiplayer capabilities. But this absence doesn't detract from the game's core experience. The game's focus on a cinematic, story-driven adventure aligns with the single-player design, allowing players to fully immerse themselves in the narrative without distractions. While co-op or competitive modes could have added a new dimension, such features aren't essential to the type of gameplay and storytelling that this game seeks to deliver. Because of this, we're going to have to give Indiana Jones and the Great Circle a 0 out of 10 for multiplayer capabilities. But this score doesn't make the game a bad game. It just means that it won't fit the needs of gamers who prefer multiplayer titles. Technical specifications. The minimum tech specs for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle suggest a demanding game that prioritizes high-end hardware for even the lowest settings. A required SSD and GPU with hardware ray tracing indicate that the game is graphically intensive, even on a low preset at 1080p resolution. The processor and memory requirements, such as an Intel Core i7-10700K or AMD Ryzen 5 3600 paired with 16GB of RAM, reflect a focus on ensuring smooth performance, though it may lock out players with older or less powerful systems. Requiring an RTX 2060 Super or equivalent as the baseline GPU means the game is targeting mid to high-tier gaming rigs, making it less accessible to budget gamers. While these specs ensure a visually stunning experience, they do set a high barrier to entry, which could alienate potential players who don't have the recommended hardware. For these requirements, we're going to give Indiana Jones and the Great Circle a 4 out of 10 for tech specs. Value for money. The value of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is questionable, especially given its $70 price tag. With a campaign lasting around 10 hours, the game offers a really poor dollar-to-hour ratio compared to similar titles in the genre. The tutorial and intro to the game is lengthy, spanning over 13 minutes. The first 7 of those minutes consists of the player following an NPC through the jungle, and throughout the 13-minute intro, 6 of those minutes are cutscenes. This is not a good first impression, as it highlights the game's reliance on passive experiences where players spend more time watching cutscenes and making minimal interactions than engaging in actual gameplay. While the inclusion of recognizable faces adds star power to the cutscenes, it likely inflated the budget of the game, raising concerns that maybe more focus should have been placed on refining gameplay mechanics and enhancing player engagement instead. For that price, players should expect more content or replayability, both of which this game struggles to deliver. You also might have noticed a blurry little box in the corner of the screen. This is every single cutscene in the story mode, sped up by a little under 19 times, making it 10 minutes worth of footage. That's 3 hours of cutscenes in a 10-hour story mode. That's a longer runtime than any Indiana Jones film that they've made. Now, it kind of makes sense why I have to click 3 different buttons to open a single door, because they want to give me the illusion that I'm playing a game instead of paying $70 to watch an Indiana Jones movie. If I really wanted to spend $70 on a disappointing Indiana Jones experience, I would have brought my entire family to go watch The Dial of Destiny. But I didn't. Instead, I played this game. 3 out of 10 for value. Our consensus. Look, I want to reiterate that this review is meant to be objective, even though my words may come off as subjective. Without bias, I am letting you know that the gameplay and controls are not polished and deserving of a good score. Additionally, the amount of gameplay is definitely not deserving of a $70 price tag, especially with the technical requirements being so high. If I just dropped a couple thousand on a computer with those specs, I'm gonna make sure that any games I buy are worth it. Despite all this, I will say that this game has an amazing narrative that fans of the franchise and even some players unfamiliar with Indiana Jones can enjoy. With all that being said, I'm still gonna have to give this game an overall rating of do not buy. For now, at least. I'd wait until the game is old enough to be heavily discounted, like at least 70% off. Because I'm pretty sure around 20 hours to beat the main and side quests of a game is only good for around $20. Now, after everything I've said, I kind of want to apologize to the developers of this game. If they're even gonna watch this, I nitpicked really hard because I was just so disappointed in it. I'm sure they spent lots of time and effort making this, but as a consumer, I must say that this is not a good game. It's an obvious cash grab for fans of the Indiana Jones franchise. It is not friendly for newcomers. I mean, the first 10 minutes of gameplay were me following a guy through a jungle and making one-button interactions. Like, where's the hook that's supposed to make me want to play more? Honestly, it kind of felt like Bethesda got a taste for making TV shows, and now their video games are just gonna be a big cinematic with little intermissions of gameplay. Like, come on, let's not go there. Also, on another note, do not play this game if you have any of these phobias. And if you don't know what any of these phobias are, or are not sure if you have them, then play this game and you'll probably find out. Anyway, thanks for watching this episode of Midnight Launch. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like. And if you want to see more content like this, feel free to subscribe. If you have any games that you want us to check out, put it in the comment section. Or if you have any categories that you want us to rate on, put that in the comment section as well. Thanks for watching. See you next time.